Well, welcome to Show Me the Money Rugby League TV. It's myself, Mick, the game caller Gleddle, joined by Jimmy Mack and young Joe Me the Money. This is a very special segment that we're going to focus on, which of course is the League One Grand Final, or should I say the League One Promotion Final, and of course the £1 million game, which was the Championship Grand Final. Both games played on Sunday. We'll start with League One. Very close to your heart, this, Jimmy. It was Swinton Lions against Doncaster at Haywood Road. A fantastic occasion. It was streamed live on The Sportsman on YouTube. I didn't go to this game in person. I was watching it on the phone off of YouTube. Again, showcasing the very best of League One. A fantastic final. It was decided right on the hooter, and it was that ball steal by Jack Hansen that ultimately settled it in favour of Swinton, who went into that game as favourites, and probably rightly so, based on what's happened throughout the season. You know, I think ultimately the top two of Keighley and Swinton have been promoted fairly. I know Carl Hall and Richard Horn might have other words to say about it, but by and large, at the start of the year, if you were picking two, you would have said Keighley and Swinton, and those two have gone up. But focusing on the game yesterday, very nearly a huge shock. Doncaster appearing in what must be their third or fourth grand final in a row, and another agonising defeat last year against Workington, this year against Swinton. Again, it all come down to that Jack Hansen last gasp try.
I totally agree with you. I think when we did the preview last week, I expected it to be a high scoring close game, but it ended up the opposite. It was very understandably nervy, tense. The atmosphere was superb. The Donny fans travelled in the numbers. They were making a racket, and obviously the Swinton fans are in that smaller stand where it really captures the noise. So it was a great occasion. At half time, genuinely thought anybody's game still. That first try of the second half was going to be crucial. And until Jack did that, which there is a little bit of, I'm sure a few Donny fans will be watching that, because they changed the rule, Mick, didn't they, with the two-man tackle stroke one-man ball steal. Am I right in thinking it used to be if there was more than one man in it, but someone drops off and it ends up being a one-on-one, you can do it? But am I right in thinking that they changed it, that if there's initially two in the tackle and one drops off and then one man takes it, it's a penalty?
Yeah.
That's as close a one. I'm sure for Donny fans it's dead simple. It was initially a two-man challenge, ended up being a one-man and he ripped the ball. But we don't want to get stuck in it too much. There was lots of decisions in that game. That referee ran a real tight game, and I'm taking nothing away from Jack. What a way to end the season. He's had a brilliant year there, and he's had a brilliant few years there. So it was a lovely way to finish the game for him, because Donny probably looked like they had one more chance once they got that possession. So unlucky to Doncaster, a club that all of us here know very well, and Carl and a lot of the players there. Sadly, just probably one game too far for them again. It's always hard in the playoffs when you have to clock up those away games. They'd been there a few weeks earlier, and Swinton had done a number on him. We were just saying then before we came on air, we genuinely believe next year is probably Donny's best chance, because no one likes messing around in the playoffs, do they? And next year, that League One looks really open. Seems very unlikely there's going to be anyone do what Keighley did this year. And I know they maintain that they haven't spent anywhere near as much as a lot of people have suggested, but they certainly bolstered their team as the year went on and made it that they were standouts. We don't think anyone's going to do that next year. We know that some teams like North Wales are going to probably find it really hard after back-to-back brilliant years. So we feel that it's going to be a few teams fighting for that top spot and that automatic spot, and I'm sure Doncaster again will be one of those clubs.
Just on that decision yesterday, I watched it, and I'll be honest, to the naked eye, I thought that's a penalty to the letter of the law.
Yeah.
Because there is initially two men in the tackle. That's a penalty, but it's going to take a brave referee to give a penalty on the halfway line, knowing that gives an opportunity, certainly, to Connor Robinson to potentially to draw the game.
Yeah.
Again, you can argue from Swinton's point of view, did Tom Halliday knock the ball on in the corner? The views I saw were inconclusive. It looked like he picked it up, it looked like he promoted it forward.
Right.
But yeah, it's a real game of inches.
And we always are those finals, aren't we? There's always going to be big decisions. I think throughout the day, as a neutral, the referee, very even both ways. There was a couple, so I don't think anyone will really isolate that. And Swinton have been the second best team throughout the year, I believe, and they started planning for this promotion early on in the season when we're in the championship. Because their fate was sealed. So, there's a lot of size of relief going on at Heywood Road last night, because you never know what can happen in them finals. But they're back up in the champ. They're gonna have real challenges now in recruitment. I've banged on about it all year, Anna, with Workington last year. It's so hard to now start trying to strengthen and get a team that can compete in that championship when you're already up against the 8-ball.
Because the worry is, Joe, Swinton, a fantastic season, they've gone back up. They're very similar to Leigh, and we're going to talk about Leigh Batley in just a moment, but, the last thing that Swinton want is to be an Alan Coleman, the head coach of Swinton, and the directors and owners of Swinton, is to be a yo-yo club,
I think the one thing...
go up, come down, go back up again.
I think the one thing they've got is with the IMG announcement... being later than originally thought, later in the year, with the World Cup coming up, I think there will be some options, more than, not saying there's loads, but saying certainly more than the Worky last year. Worky last year got promoted and there was about 2 players, there were about 2 players to pick from, whether they were even quality, you know what I mean? But I think there's certainly more players, luckily for Swinton, whether there's enough talent still out there to guarantee them safety, that'd be a tough one. They've definitely got a tough job on their hands, haven't they? But I thought with the game, I thought it were amazing, to be honest with you, Mick. I was on the edge of my seat for all of it, whether there was silly mistakes, like it's League One rugby, lads, you know what I mean? There's going to be silly mistakes, there's going to be but as the comments I was watching on the YouTube, I went there, and the comments, everyone, I think I chucked in a few myself, everyone was saying what an amazing game.
It was intensity, was brilliant.
Intensity, effort level, it had everything you want. It had everything you want from a promotion final in League One. So fair play to both teams. They both had a right dig. Either team could have won it. Either team probably would argue they should have won it based on your view of who you wanted to win. So fair credit to both.
And I don't want to be too biased here, but I thought when it was getting into a real arm wrestle, later on in that first half or halfway stage, when Swinton brought on Lewis Hatton, and just the immediate impact, I think that's where Swinton really worked him down the middle and got them Danny tired legs at the end. And he deserves a shout out, because I thought after missing a good few weeks through injury, to come back in, and I think his first carry he cannonballed about 4 lads out of the way. So they deserve it, I think, and I'm looking forward to see Donny. Hopefully next year they can really fight for that top spot and not have to go through the playoffs.
Because you are right, League One, historically, it has incubated clubs that should never have been there. Obviously, you start with perhaps Toulouse spending money. Toulouse went straight up, then you've got the Toronto. Then you had Bradford after what happened in 2017 and their relegation. You had York the same year, had high spending. And then you look at what has happened, and League One, by and large, it was there to incubate your West Wales, your North Wales, your Midlands, your Coventries, your London Scholars, rugby league in new areas like Cornwall, for instance. It wasn't ever designed really to have a Bradford or a Toronto or a Toulouse in there. But next year, quite rightly, I'm looking forward to it because it is wide open. Rochdale will fancy the chances. Yeah. So will Hunslet. There's no Keighley in there spending, I wouldn't say silly amounts, but certainly unrealistic amounts for a Doncaster, a Rochdale, a Hunslet to match and challenge. Obviously, Dewsbury coming down, they're probably going to be seen as one of the favourites. Remains to be seen what Workington Town can do, obviously, given their financial issues at the club and players having to take pay cuts. They've lost Chris Foreman to Newcastle. Again, big move for Chris that, going back home. But it'll be interesting 'cause, got a lot of friends at a number of clubs in League One, none more so than Cow Hall at Doncaster. And you really suspect, this could be the year that Doncaster get themselves back up in that championship. They've been down in League One now for 3-4 years. As we know with the IMG announcement, they were very honest, IMG. We want a strong South Yorkshire presence. And this is no disrespect to the Sheffield Eagles, but if Doncaster get it right, I could actually see Doncaster overtaking Sheffield and being South Yorkshire's Premier Rugby League club. I know that's a big call.
That might hurt you, mate.
No. Listen. They've got a magnificent facility at the Keepmoat. If Doncaster get it right, as we saw in the Championship, I think it was back in 2015, 2016, they were getting 3,000-4,000 for some of them big games against your Leighs and your Bradfords. So there is the catchment area there. They have got World Cup games. I forget I should know this off by heart because I got sent a list the other day of the games that I'm covering for the World Cup, and I'm actually there on one of the Monday nights.
Right.
I think it's Fiji against somebody. Forgive me, Carl, if I've got it wrong. I should know this off the top of my head, but I'm off down there, and the fact that they're getting World Cup games, that already tells you in the World Cup organisation's eyes that Doncaster are one of those leading clubs. They've been given, and they've got the facilities there.
Yeah.
Again, as you said last week, if we're talking about a club in League One potentially getting promoted and then having a realistic chance of getting in and joining the top tier, you've got to put Doncaster down there. No disrespect to anybody else, but it might seem like I'm favouring Doncaster a lot here, but I'm just looking at what's in place already there.
And I think that's the difference. What Donny have got already is a bit different. Sheffield are going to that stadium's going to keep building, and they're going to get there. Speaking to Killshaw this week, what Hunslet are trying to do, they've got this bidding. They're ready to take over that complex, improve the stadium, set up all this community side of things with meals for underprivileged homes, everything going, and they've hit a barrier with the council who don't want to let it go. They're losing £2 million a year, the council, and they won't let it go. So there's clubs who are all poised, Hunslet, Rochdale, Doncaster, Oldham will fancy having a go. So it's going to be, I don't want to write off North Wales, but I do think they're going to find it really tough next year. But there's 4 teams there that you think are going to be all believing that they're going to be getting that top spot.
I didn't know this, but I didn't realise there's actually, where Hunslet's ground is, there's the Olympic swimming pool.
It's right in the top of South Leeds Stadium.
It was when I was there, and I was like watching all these divers go past, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then you realise that the Great British Diving Team, they actually train out of Hunslet. I saw Alan at the awards night last Monday, and he was very positive and upbeat about Hunslet's chances. Again, Hunslet, very similar to Andy Maisie and Gary Thornton, who's now the head coach at Rochdale. Listen, League One, wide open next year.
Wide open. And we'll do a proper preview, won't we, when we get nearer, but the budgets are similar, and it's going to be really competitive.
Spoke to the Cornwall table. I'm not sure what's going on with Eric Perez. Eric, a good friend of the show. I think he might be about to get shunted out of the way. And
no, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No,
not for us. Yeah, I'm sure Eric might be sad about that, Mick, if he is.
Well, I don't want to. No.
We'll see. No, I think they'll be excited by the IMG news.
I agree. Yeah. Oh no, I was just going to say they have a lot going for them down there, because obviously when the criteria is released, the clubs have got to agree to the criteria first. By the way, but when the criteria is released, I know Rugby League in terms of geographical expansion, that is going to be worth so many points. What I do know is they're going to go on a system of 3-2-1. That's what I do know. So crowds, you'll be based on 3-2-1.
Oh, is it? It's going to be such a small. It's not going to be out of 20 or anything.
No, it's going to be 3-2-1.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be 3-2-1, and there's going to be an average, but there might be. And I was talking to a couple of clubs who are literally looking over their shoulders about all this. In that, when it all comes down to it, they're fully expecting a current Super League club will be replaced, and it will be as low as 1 point.
A difference.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
That is
However they do it, it's going to be close.
That is pretty much what they are predicting.
Yeah.
They're expecting they will not, going out of 24 into 25, they will not have the same 12.
No.
And I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
No.
And without pinpointing and saying this club, that club, I think we know which clubs and which clubs potentially would
They're
replace
in the balance,
them.
yeah.
But yeah.
And Cornwall, very quickly, we'll do more, but Cornwall, they'll be significantly better next year.
Yeah.
They've had such a transition year.
They've had a good ground.
Pretty much every player next year will be living there, so they'll be able to train properly. They won't be spending all week working out the logistics of flights, coaches, hotel rooms. So they're going to be able to really focus on the rugby side next year with much better quality training. So I think it'll be exciting. It'll be really exciting.
I know we can't mention the player's name, but Super League player from a Super League club. He could have gone to Bradford and he's decided to go to Cornwall because he loves it down there.
A Super League player currently.
He didn't play. He played one Super League game.
Oh,
Did he
sorry.
play one Super League?
One.
Yeah, right.
Well, either way,
Yeah.
he's been in and around a Super League environment.
Yeah.
That's the point I was
I'm
trying
with
to get
you,
to.
yeah.
Looking at the wrong man then, mate.
Well, anyway.
I thought you were breaking some massive.
No.
Someone who's played a lot of games there this year.
Yeah. We don't
I'm
want to
with
give
you.
it away.
I'm with
Right,
you.
Joe, we got to Leigh yesterday. Fantastic occasion. 7,500 people there.
Yeah.
I spoke to Derek on that Monday at the awards night. Derek thought maybe 5, 6, to get 7,500 there,
Brilliant.
all-day crowd.
A sellout as well, officially a sellout, that wasn't it?
No.
That was the amount of seats they had available, apparently.
Well, it might be on the seat side, but
Yeah.
there was certainly one of the stands, it was only half open.
Yeah, but I don't know what the reason was, but
Listen, it was good.
it was
All 4
full.
stands open.
It was full. Yeah.
7,500. I'm sure
7,500.
IMG have probably, if they've made a prejudgment about Leigh, they've probably opened their eyes and gone, they've got a lot of potential.
I mean, let's just look at what Batley had to contend with yesterday in the history of rugby league in terms of teams posting points. In the history of the British game, Leigh with the points that they've scored and the tries they've scored, it's never happened in any division, be it top tier, middle tier, bottom tier.
they've got 3 of the top scorers in Championship.
It's unbelievable.
Out of the top 5.
They've had 1 defeat all season. That was in round 2, and I remember watching that. I was in York
Against
on
Featherstone,
a
wasn't it?
Monday evening, and there was a lot of criticism of Leigh after that game.
Yeah, there was.
And then how Adrian Lamb and Chris Chester, they've turned it around and they've slowly added quality. And I know Derek and the money, people can argue about that, but ultimately, Adrian Lamb, he did say to me on that Monday evening at Leeds, he started the season with just 7 players, and he's just slowly improved.
And fair play to Derek, I know you've got to say fair play to Derek. He's gone out, he's said it, he's done it, he's gone and built one of the best. I think as we speak to a lot, I think that is unanimously the greatest Championship side of all time. Derek's gone and built the greatest Championship of all time, and he's paid for it pretty much all himself, hasn't he? So fair play to Derek. As the Man Cities of the world shows that eventually history don't matter, because now everyone loves Man City when they used to get slaughtered for spending the money. Now everyone's like, oh, they're a brilliant club, they do things right. At the end of the day, if he wants to spend the money, let him spend it. He's gone out and done it. He's absolutely nailed the greatest Championship side of all time. I think we've argued in the time they'd finished top 6 in Super League. Some people have argued, probably me myself a few months ago. I think fair play to what a side that was. And the main point is, well done to Batley as well. What a fight they put up in that first 30 minutes. It was the greatest 30 minutes.
Whole game.
Yeah, well,
But
just the
even to
30
keep them
minutes
down to
before.
6-0, yeah.
30 minutes, you're like, they're not going to do it, are they, Batley?
Yeah, how long can they hang on? Yeah.
And they give it was mind blowing.
I think I said in commentary, it was brave, it was bold, it was stoic, it was courageous.
Yeah.
Good words.
Well, I was only describing what I was witnessing out there on the field. That Lachlan Lamb try come off the back of a drop ball and an error, and you try and look at components of that game. Could Batley have ever have got Leigh yesterday? Sadly, no. I do not think they could have done. No. But what you did see from Craig Lingard's side is you saw that effort, you saw that enthusiasm, resilience, that courageousness, not waving that white flag.
Can I just say one last thing to all Championship sides, that you have to build up for 3 or 4 years, guys. I know we've been saying it, haven't we? I think a lot of clubs are saying, oh, we'll just wait for that final year, then we'll pump the money in for this IMG thing. Look what Batley have done. They've spent how many years? 5, 6 building this squad, isn't it? It's 5 or 6 years building this fantastic squad, and that's what it takes. It doesn't take 1 year of spending, guys. It takes 3 or 4 years of planning to get a squad like that. So fair play to Craig. And I don't want to say wake up, that's a bit rude, but that's the way to do it. Build up. They're one of the cheapest spenders because they've done it right and they've spent 5 years planning. They're one of the cheapest spenders in Champ and they've just done the final and give probably the toughest, apart from Featherstone in the second round beating them, they'd probably give them the toughest challenge. Barrow, yeah. There's in the season, but like a big game performance, I probably mean, it's probably unfair to Barrow.
No, your point, yeah.
But totally big game performance, they've give one of the toughest and best performances, never mind the score, that we've seen against Leigh all season. So just look at what they've done. They've cheap money, great players, built for 4 or 5 years, and then that's what happens. Learn from it, please.
I mean, I think the best thing about that game for me was the handicap before was 40. I thought it was about right. I think when we did the predictions last week, I thought, can Batley get within 40? I thought that would be an achievement after them having that really tough game against Fev. And let's be honest, Leigh haven't had a tough game for a very, very long time. Their bodies are still fresh. They're used to good ball. They're used to doing it easy. So at half time, there wasn't one person, not one pundit, and I certainly didn't think, and anyone who I was speaking to during the game, that anything was going to happen other than Leigh probably put another 30 on him, something like that. So for Batley to come out and lose the second half by 14 points, that just sums up Batley. To not give up, Dane Manning leading, we talked about him before, we should do a show on him himself, leading from the front, going toe-to-toe. There was none of this, right lads, that was a great first half, we've shown ourselves for what we are, now we'll roll over, we've achieved everything and more we wanted to. They just kept fighting and fighting. Leigh would have been thinking, here we go, let's get you on the score sheet, let's get him on the score sheet, let's have a pie, let's try and get 60. And Batley like, no, we got to fight till the end. And you can't give him enough credit, can you? You really can't. That was brilliant. Because not only for us who watch it regardless and love every minute of it, but for any neutrals tuning into that game, they're not getting turned off thinking, what's the point of this? It's 60-0 and this is supposed to be a final. They would have enjoyed it. That second half, unbelievable effort. And
you just saw ever so slightly, I mean, Adrian Lamb labelled it after the game an inconsistent performance. He felt that the pressure of the occasion obviously affected their ability. Give a lot of respect for Batley as well, but when you actually dissect that game, it was the 2 tries before half-time and the 2 tries after half-time.
Yeah, the quick tries.
Aikins and Mellor, that was it, game over. At that point, it's 30 points to 0, and you still got 30-odd minutes, and you just know it's sadly game over. But like you say, for the first 30 or so minutes, it was very difficult to say who's spending pretty much 1.4 and who's spending 250 grand.
And again, that adds to it. Once they got those quick tries after half-time, you thought, here we go, but they didn't stop.
I was expecting a bloodbath. I thought, here we go. And this could be 60.
And Leigh have done it. Leigh have done it 12 times this year, where teams have then got to that point. Right, we've given all we can, and then you can't help but some of them probably switch off a bit and think, well, this is gone anyway. Whereas Batley didn't. They fought till the very end, and it nearly got really tasty at the end, which would have been interesting. Another thing to add for the neutrals, a bit of the old biff, but no.
The only thing I can be worried about for Batley is if you watch that game as a coach of Super League, of big spenders in Champ next year, they're going to have some massive offers for them players, even the ones that are older. They'll be, I reckon, even though a lot of them already are leaving, they'll probably be more leaving on the back of how well they played, which is a sad thing for Batley, because you hope they can keep a lot of them. But
I think they have. I think other than the ones we know who are going, the Luke Cooley to Leeds, the Gilmore to Widnes, which is undoubtedly going to affect him. Sadly for Batley, to an extent, this beautiful run they've had of keeping the band together is coming to an end. But that doesn't mean Lingard and his team aren't going to go and recruit really well and replace those and put together another team, keep enough of the core. And I think he has kept the vast majority have already signed on for next year. Dave Manning's going round again. You know, when we do Championship Team of the Year in a week or two's time, he's my first name on the team sheet. Never mind the Leigh players. You know, they're keeping the heartbeat of that team. Yes, they're going to try and replace those X-factor players.
Kept them, fair enough. That's.
But yeah, I know what you mean, Joe. I'm sure there'll be people keeping tabs on some.
Yeah,
of them
I'm sure Batley, the owners will be happy if they have already got them signed up. Because I'm sure if they didn't get them signed up, they'd be getting tapped, them lads. Because you take every single one of them. So fair play to every single Batley player. Fair play to Leigh doing the job, getting promoted as they should have done.
Yeah.
Bit mean, but should have done. Everyone's done their job there. Great game, great final.
Well, interestingly for both Leigh and Batley, there is going to be wholesale change this coming year, because Adrian Lamb said after the game there are 2 or 3 coming from the NRL on top of what they've already got. So that Leigh are going to be losing a lot of those overseas players. Yeah. So they are going to be available. I know Mark Campbell will be licking his lips and he'll be thinking, well, we can get those to Featherstone. I know Toulouse are obviously looking at a couple as well, depending on how the visa system works over there.
And a couple, rumours, Nene McDonald, who really has probably been a standout.
Looking at other Super League clubs as well.
Leeds Rhinos heavily linked with him, and Leeds fans will be delighted because before Blake came along and stole the show with 100 tries in 4 games, you know what I mean? It was all about Nene as being the wow factor. But I've been banging on about that Kai O'Donnell all year. The back rower just...
Well, he's also linked with Leeds.
I think I got confused. That's James O'Donnell. That was from Wigan. I think he's back to Australia. And some of them there will be changing around, and they'll. But Derek will be on it. We know that much.
It was a scary thought when Adrian says there's 2 or 3 you don't know about, Mick, that are coming from NRL, and I'm like, wow.
So that means a lot of
because Leigh, again, as we said, similar to Swinton, you don't want to be that yo-yo club.
I don't think they need to, though. I think the Aussies, they've got our Super League plus,
including the ones for losing, though. They are losing.
But they're keeping the ones they want to keep, aren't they?
Well, they're wanting to keep Nene McDonald. That's true. But keeping a Pape is
keeping a Pape, keeping. I think Lamb fits the quota, doesn't he? But the keeping Aikens, I think they're keeping a lot of the ones they want.
Well, what they're showing is if they're losing an Nene McDonald, perhaps, but they're going to be replacing him with someone they're equally as happy with. And I think, that'd be great for the. We've all said how strongly Leanne. I don't think anyone's questioning they have the best, like you said, Joe, championship team we've ever seen. But it is not easy going into Super League and having competitive games every week, picking up injuries. The big squad, and I'm sure they'll make sure they've got enough of. Well, they'll have to have enough of the English, even if they fill the quota.
Well, that's the thing, innit? They'll have to find a way to. We've seen he's amazing at recruiting Aussie players. Let's see him recruit some top English players. He obviously knows how to pick an Aussie. You can not doubt that. But can they recruit the English?
They've got a few over the line already, haven't they? A few English lads over the line.
Keenan Brand, he's not really been playing the last few weeks. Of course, he's not going in at the minute when you've got Christian Inu, Chamberlain, who's been fantastic.
Brilliant.
And the challenge for Leigh now is, with the homegrown quota coming in, is how does Derek invest in your Leigh minor Rangers and your community clubs there, so they start getting those young homegrown Leigh players in? Because like Craig said, you've got Leigh minor Rangers over there and Leigh East, a good, very strong community clubs, game, which Wigan scouts like to go and watch, very similar to Siddle and Halifax over these parts, and Stanley, Leeds, in the other direction. The key here is going to be, yes, you might have a fantastic stadium performing on the field. If you might be like, well, we're okay, we're in, we've got
a 2 or a strong they might get a 2 for on the field performance, might they? If they can come mid-table next year, they might get a 2, but that's one aspect.
But looking at Leigh and where there is room for improvement here, without wanting to sound too negative, the homegrown players coming through, that has to be an area which Derek hopefully will look to address.
Because geographically, anyone from Leigh like myself, we've got a bloody Wigan postcode, so you talk about...
I never knew you were from Leigh,
Same postcode as Wigan. So, you talk about the worries of Bradford and Keighley, that's the same factor for, Wigan and Leigh. Unless the day comes where Leigh start trumping Wigan now, that would be like Man City trumping Man United.
We'll see. Just a quick one while we're on the Championship. Nobody is spending, Jimmy. Nobody appears to be pulling the... I say nobody, obviously. Widnes.
Apart from the ones that have already spent, probably the best way to... No one from the IMG announcement has gone, all right, let's go spend. I think that's probably...
Well, I'll be honest, the feedback I'm getting from the clubs, and I include Bradford in this, is... why do we need to spend? Because 23 effectively now is basically a dead year. It's 24 onwards when...
Batley is why you've got to spend.
I know what you're saying, Joe. I know what you're saying, but the clubs, they're not flush with money. You know, they've burned through all the pandemic money. They've got to repay the government loans and grants.
Yeah.
Crowds are down across the board. It's tough being an owner of a rugby league club.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say for 1 minute that I agree with let's shut up shop and... keep the wallet firmly tied. But my worry is, based on what IMG have said, 23 is just going to be a year where people do keep the wallet shut and just plod along before the real fun starts in 24.
Yeah, and I think,
I think that'd be a shame, really, Jimmy.
It will, and I've got the same belief as Joe. To put a strong team together for 2 or 3 years' time, you need to start doing that now. Now, whether clubs think... Well, what we'll do is we'll start taking on a few more younger players who we believe have got potential rather than... I don't know, maybe a lot of listeners and viewers know the situation, but probably get an idea of it because if they see how much movement goes on. But 1 year deals in Championship Rugby are probably 80% of deals. So clubs who are saying, we'll hang on for next year, they might be thinking, well, there'll be another load of players available and that's when we'll let the money go. I would expect to see clubs start to do more 2 year deals and try and now secure players for longer. There's 1 or 2 Championship clubs who started that a year or 2 ago. So now they're looking quite good. Yeah. Your Yorks and your Sheffield who've done very well at getting players and keeping players and getting them for 2 years, even 3 years now. And that really leads toward... I think what Batley have done really well is retain.
Correct.
We're starting to see more now with if it's a player we trust and we believe in, we'll get them on a longer deal and set ourselves up so we're not panicking every year. We're not in this situation where we're having to resort to who's available. We're getting our things in motion and then we can add 1 or 2 here and there. And it's going to be a bit of both. Clubs have put the ice on a bit and slowed down, but the vast majority have done the vast majority. It's now a case of who can we pick up from a Super League club on loan? Some clubs are relying on that more heavily than others.
Well, we know Bradford are next year.
I think Bradford are going to
heavily rely
so.
on the loan. The loan.
The proof will be in the pudding. Bradford did a bit of that this year, didn't they? They also put quite a lot of money into some players who most would say haven't been a success.
Correct.
So it is about finding a way to do it, isn't it? And what works and depending on what's available. There's no point offering a 3 year deal to a player if you don't believe in him. You might be better saying, well, you know what, we'll get this help from Leeds Rhinos for this player for next year, and we'll have a look again when more players are available. The key for me is not going to be next year. It's not going to be what happens next year. It's going to be those who start their recruitment on May the 1st for 2024.
Yeah.
Because that is going to be the big year. Anything you can do now is a head start. Starting your recruitment early for 2024 is going to be really important.
I totally agree, Jimmy, because obviously at the end of 23, this next year they'll get the provisional gradings.
Yeah.
But it's going to be 24 where performance on the field, what the club actually does, is going to be worth.
But then that's all. Unless you, but then I think that's all bollocks, isn't it? Unless you're willing to start now, your performance on the if everyone's going to spend, there's only so many amount of players, so it means some players are going to get paid overs on what they are next year. But that doesn't improve the quality. That just improves that improves our job of the average wage. I think to get the quality, you have to try find them. I'm so staunch on you've got to start now, because you've got to. If you find a gem now, you've got a good chance of retaining them if you treat them right, you do well, and you pay them the amount of money they deserve. But if you do it next year and you end up panicking, thinking we've got this money to spend, and then you end up paying these players who get paid overs, that's traditionally what's happened in Champ, unless they do a league.
And if everyone decides that we're going to spend more next year, and everyone's got a similar budget, player A has got 3 options of the same amount anyway. So the competition for players is still going to be the same. So any head start this year is very much a head
got to start this year, in my opinion. Obviously, I could be proven wrong. Maybe a team does in 2024 to spend that money, and then they've got to start this year.
They're not, Joe. They're not.
I know they're not. No, that's why I'm getting in. That's why I'm getting so passionate about it, because it's.
And most have done. Most have done the majority as well. You know, most clubs have done the vast majority. Batley, you know, they had a lot going on near the end of the season. They've probably got a bit more to do. Bradford have got a bit more to do. But I don't think many others have in the Championship. I think most of them
Whitehaven, Featherstone,
Newcastle.
There's quite. I disagree with you. There's quite a few.
Listen, I'm only being honest with what after the announcement. I spoke to a lot of clubs, and the general consensus from pretty much everyone is Toulouse. It'll be between Toulouse and Featherstone next year, because Toulouse are going to be still spending $1 million plus. What Mark Campbell does with Featherstone, whether or not Mark goes again after what's happened this year in the failings. But, you know, if you're asking me to be honest, and I was going to ask the question, does the Championship ever so slightly have a little bit of predictability about it, knowing that your top 2 are going to be Toulouse or Featherstone next year? Because the challenge is going to be on a Halifax, it's going to be on a Barrow, it's going to be on a York. How do Batley cope losing your Luke Cooley's, your Gilmores, your Michael Wards, etc., who are moving on to pastures new?
Yeah.
I think the top 2 next year, depending on what Toulouse do, because Toulouse do have the money to spend, I think the top 2 next year have got to be Halifax and York, Mick.
What?
Halifax and York.
Top 2 next year?
Yeah, I think that's
what, over Toulouse and Fev?
No, I said you didn't hear my start. I said depending on what Toulouse spend at this very moment, because Toulouse haven't spent anything yet.
Toulouse will be doing $1 million.
So if they do, look, obviously.
Yeah, I mean,
Toulouse, but
I'm taking it for granted that Toulouse and Fev will lead the spend, doubling anybody else.
I'm just conveying what the club owners are saying, and they're saying, why do we need to spend money when it's going to be Toulouse or Fev? I know that's a very backward-looking point of view. But
you understand it, and this is the problem we had this year. Like, you know, it was
Leigh or Fev.
Yeah,
it was Leigh or Fev,
and it's going to be, and it is hopefully the last year of that.
That's
that's how it's going to be.
Yeah. I think there's a difference between. I agree with them maybe not spending loads of money, but I think they've got to do. I think clubs have got to do more research on spending the money wisely. I think a lot of clubs go, what's available, I've heard of him, they'll take him, rather than thinking where's he going to be at in 3 years, which club. There seems to be a lack of plan with clubs. As you speak to, there's a lack of plan. Is he a good player right this moment? Can I get him on a good cheap price? Yes, he's in. If not, he's out. That's it's simple. No, I rarely get coach go to me, well, if I improve this part of his game in 2 or 3 years, he'll be getting this and he'll be performing at this level, and that will be Super League level in another. There's never no plan. He works well. It's always, is he cheap? Is he cheap to what I think he's worth? Yes. Has he got a good name? Yes. All right, he's in.
And it's so hard though, because we are so short term. Most coaches are on rolling contracts. You know, everything needs to be immediate, and that's why the clubs who are able to look further ahead are in an advantage. And the 2 clubs that have been able to do that, and maybe you'd probably say Halifax have got a bit more stability. They can look a bit further ahead. Sheffield have been looking a bit further ahead. York have been looking a bit further ahead. A lot of the other clubs, it's all about what can we do right now to try and help us in 6 months and in 12 months, and it needs a lot of things off the field to be in place for clubs to have that luxury. It's just another challenge we have in the game, isn't it? But yeah, what I think is probably the best way to look at it is, I'm still being optimistic. I think next year the Championship's going to be brilliant, because I think Fev, I don't know what they'll do recruitment wise, but I think they're not miles ahead. You know, Halifax, York, Sheffield, Widnes, and I don't want to miss anybody out, but they're the ones who come to mind. They're going to be banging on. Yeah, Barrow. Thank you.
Keithley as well.
Keithley potentially. So I think there's going to be a really
Crooks,
because there's going to be there's going to be such a higher standard throughout. Games will be more competitive, so teams don't have as many easy weeks. The top teams don't have as many easy weeks. So I'm really optimistic about next year. And same with the League One clubs. I know you can't help but have one eye on 2024 and what's going to happen in 2025. But let's remember, you can't do anything about your geography. You're stuck in where you are.
Yes.
So you can't change that. What you can change is your on-field performance, and the other big one, fans. The only way to get fans in, as Keithley have proved this year, and I think 5,000 is going to be the magic number. Something like that. So how can you get more fans into the stadium? Winning games. If you want to motivate people to come, you've got to start winning it, and that alone should encourage teams to try and perform to the highest they can and do as well as they possibly can, because it's pretty much the only way to improve attendances. And I don't want to use Bradford as an example, but I'm going to have to. You've gone from 15,000 to 3, and there's been a lot of things going on off the field, but ultimately it's an extreme example of, as you move down and you start winning less games, there's a huge section of fans who are glory fans, for want of a better term, and Keithley are now on the other side of that. They probably doubled, nearly trebled their figures by winning.
And like you said, to highlight the Bradford crowd there, that's not happened overnight. That's a good
10, 15
years decline. And for people who gloat about Bradford and the situation, listen, it's no laughing matter. 15,000 fans disappearing and not supporting the sport of rugby league.
No.
Nobody should be laughing about that. You look at Halifax. Halifax are in a similar situation. They used to get 6,000-7,000 when they were in the Super League. They're now down to 1,300-1,400.
Yeah.
I was talking
same percentage drop.
I know Ian Crode is moving on, and there's new investment coming into the share. But Ian Crode was quite right. When after the Halifax Bradford game, it's like, where have all these come from? That there's an extra 1,200 for Halifax fans who've come through the turnstile because it's Bradford, but they won't come when it's Sheffield or Barrow or Widnes. So the challenge is for every club, and I do think IMG does that. Just quickly, we didn't grade Widnes last week, so we will grade Widnes. Right, Widnes would be a B. Where Widnes need to improve is homegrown players. I know they got rid of the academy. They're still very good, and there's still very homegrown ethos there. But I think in terms of what is about to come in with the homegrown quota, Widnes probably could see that as an area of improvement. I know the chances of getting the academy back there are going to be slim, with St Helens, Wigan and Warrington all having academies, but there might be potentially a link up with North Wales. Crusaders.
Is that the same for Leigh then? Is it going to be hard for Leigh to get an academy?
It is going to be hard, Jim. It's going to be hard for York because
they have to change that rule.
There's going to be no academy licences.
They have to change that rule, don't they? Surely, mate.
Right.
I'm not sure. I have asked the RFL for clarity on this. I mean, it has been a busy week with Ralph Rimmer under fire for his comments at the awards night and all the other stuff that's going on within the sport. But I did actually say, they're wanting less. Less is more in the eyes of Dave Rotherham and Paul Medley. They'd love it if we went to regional academies, where we just have a regional centre in Yorkshire, Lancashire, Cumbria, London, North East, Newcastle, Northumbria, Cheshire, Lancashire, Midlands. That's what ultimately they'd love to do. They'd love to have 8 regional academies. Just because the player pool's not there anymore. The player pool is decreasing. They're just saying that there's not enough quality to support all these academies.
I didn't really. I was assuming that Leigh could now get themselves an academy.
No, it's the same with Salford.
So the clubs that currently have the academy are at an unbelievable advantage on the grading system.
Which is why. Do you remember when I said to you a few months
London,
back?
Yeah,
David Hughes said to me. He said,
I understood that, but I didn't realise that these had barriers to stop it.
Oh that's why.
So Widnes and Leigh are.
Dad says on the time, they don't have an academy. I'll get my dad in trouble. He says, but then if you read the comments, you get about 200 fans going. We can't.
Yeah, yes, I see.
Which is why, when it comes to the criteria,
I thought it was down to money. I thought it was mainly that.
I spoke to John Flatman before he sold the club to Clint, and John said to me, they would have an academy in a heartbeat. They would pump the 100 grand in.
Yes.
That they've just not been granted one
Right.
because there's not the player pool. Now I would agree a North Yorkshire academy would benefit the sport of rugby league.
Right.
As Newcastle have an academy, as
Right.
London do.
Right.
Bradford, obviously, that academy, as Craig has rightly said, that's kept the club going. You know, the amount of players that have been sold: Oliver Wilson, Reece Butterworth,
Right,
Matt
yeah,
Stork,
okay.
Owen Milnes. You know, the list is endless.
So let's say Widnes, who were in as good a position as any, or as most current Championship clubs to get themselves a strong B. How do they go about meeting the homegrown quota? Do they have to go to Holton Hornets and go,
Yeah.
we need some...
Yeah.
Wow.
If you look at what Halifax are doing and Barrow, they're doing the college system as York are. So that, I mean, when the whole academy fiasco come out, you know, that was sold to me by the RFL. Well, okay, Castleford and Bradford, they can go do what Barrow and Halifax are doing, which is down the college route. But I don't think that's going to work in every situation. But I do like the homegrown rule,
Yeah,
and the homegrown
definitely.
rule is going to stop expensive NRL imports coming and other players coming, and ultimately, you know, there is going to be a shift in focus, driving up standards.
Yeah.
So I do applaud that. How it works and how it's policed remains to be seen. But like you know, Jimmy, if those clubs know a home, you know, you've got to have, say, I don't even know, I couldn't even begin to imagine how many homegrown players, but like same with Catalans and Toulouse as part of their criteria to be in the top tier. If they are in the top tier, they're going to have a certain percentage of those players being homegrown, just like a Wigan and St Helens and Leeds are. Yeah. But that's just going to drive up standards because those clubs, Super League clubs, or top tier clubs, whatever they decide to rebrand the top tier as, they're just going to be thinking, well, you know, we need to invest money in our community clubs, in grassroots, which is going to drive up standards, which is going to bring more, you know, homegrown players off that conveyor belt.
Mick, am I miles? What's for clubs that, you know, like York, Halifax, who do the community, the clubs that do the community, I don't mind that much. I don't mind that way that much, because as long as it's proven to get results, like I said, I apologise, I don't know enough about the system with Halifax and Barrow and that, but with York, they brought 5 players through this in the last 2 years, 5 or 6 players.
It proves it works, and not,
so there's variety of ways you can bring through the homegrown. That's a positive thing. So someone you talked about before week, someone made a really good comment that perhaps it used to be better anyway when players stayed in the community game for longer and played for their regional and played competitive rugby at that level.
What I will stress, Jimmy and Joe, is that although people are saying, it's going to favour a Newcastle, a London, a Bradford, not necessarily. Look at Barrow, look at York, look at Halifax.
Yeah.
You know, Will Calcott, I think at Halifax, those players homegrown players that have come through that system, if you produce them and they're good enough to play in your first team, you will meet that homegrown quota, and you will get the extra points on your criteria. But
and the good thing about it is they get an education as well. So when rugby does inevitably stop, as it does for every player, they've got a backup. I know AJ Tausch does all of. He does all their website work, and he gets a decent wage for doing all their work, and that's because of this college system they've done has allowed him to do that. AJ now does brilliant, and he's guaranteed a career at post rugby.
And the lads at Super League academies also do college alongside it as well. So. But I'm going to have to leave you.
Yeah, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much. We will keep an eye on the Championship and League One regularly throughout the off-season. But as always is the case, we'll keep it positive. Rugby League will be back next week with a full 80 minutes. And don't forget to check out our England squad team selection debate ahead of that first game against Samoa a week on Saturday. That's an interesting show. Very lively show. But until next time, League One Championship over and out for season 2022. We'll do it all again next year in 2023. And if you want a quick bold prediction, Toulouse will go up.
Too early prediction.
I'm going to... Andy Maisie Carlo. I'm going to... You know what, Carl... I'm going to say Toulouse and Doncaster. Automatics, Toulouse and Doncaster. Locking you in early, Joe.
Automatics, way too early, so don't get offended.
You're sitting up fence.
Don't get offended by this. I've got it. I've got my...
Go on, then.
I'm going to get in trouble for this. I'm going York go up, automatic, promotion, and I've got next year I've got. Oh, it's a tough one, that League One, isn't it? Bloody hell.
Oh, yeah.
That's
So
really
open,
tough.
so open.
I've got Dewsbury going up at this very moment, depending on
York and Dewsbury.
Toulouse, and I don't want to do this. Are you going with Dewsbury?
There we go. See you next year.